Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
In January of this year, as we always do in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, our human rights organizations brings in one or more people to celebrate with the public school children about that event. That happened again this year. We had 5 brothers here, and at that time we also taped programs with them that we're bringing to you today and next week. We're so pleased to welcome 3 of those brothers on today's program, and the others will be with us next week. First of all, I would like to welcome to the program Quinn Williams, and next to him is Morgan, and then Jordan. I had the privilege today to, as we're taking this program, to hear you, and you have magical voices, and thank you for being here and all that you shared, not only with the young people of our schools, but with our public. And welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure to be here.
And as always, I'm very pleased to have regular panelists. First of all, Janelle Burke, an attorney in the state of Idaho, and next to her is Erna Reinhardt, Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College, and we shall commence today's questioning with Janelle Burke.
Well, I have heard you. I discovered before the program that I've heard you, and you're wonderful. And but I didn't recognize you. But now I have to find out more about you. Let's start with Jordan. You've been around the longest. You're the oldest of the brothers, and you've been around the longest. Can you tell us how your group got started?
Well, originally we were in a theater group called Jump Company in Twin Falls. Jump Company consists of kids grade school through high school. And it's a theater group that does musicals every summer. And when we started, I was 14, I think, and then successively on down the line. We started by just doing musicals every summer. We had a variety show, and we got together an a cappella number with a few other friends, and that was essentially the beginning of the group. From there, it just snowballed and became what you see today. So.
And Morgan, what kinds of music do you do? What kinds of entertainment do you do?
We called ourselves the Standards in the beginning because we started out singing standard tunes, which 50s, 60s, and we've evolved to not only doing standard tunes, but doing contemporary, doing original tunes. We do quite a large variety, from anywhere from gospel to jazz, as much as we can possibly do, and we find by doing that a lot of times the crowd will be really diverse, so it's really been beneficial to be able to approach it that way.
And Quinn, how old were you when you started with the group?
Actually, when the group first started, with my 4 older brothers and 2 friends, so I wasn't in the group until I was about 15, about 6 or 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And in the very beginning, I was the younger brother in the background that always wanted to be in the group, but after a while, when I first started, I was about 15 and just doing a guest song, and then eventually they let me in the group. So.
Now, just Morgan wants to add something here. I can tell.
I'm sorry. I just love the way he said they let me in the group. It's kind of like the youngest will let you in.
The older mom was like, "Come on, guys, you got to let him in the group. He's going to be complaining and all." Just kidding.
And at this point, I want to point out one thing to our viewers. Jordan, maybe you can help me. It's an a cappella group, and you sing with that. This is not a band.
Well, yes and no to the answer. We originally started out as an a cappella group. Back in '92, when we started, there was a group called Boys to Men that came out with an a cappella song, and it went to #1 on the radio, and that's where we got our start from. We are now in the process of incorporating instruments and expanding our roots. If an artist were required to, write with only a pencil or create with only a pencil, they would be limited, and so we're expanding our horizons and adding some instruments specifically to go into other markets. We'd like to expand as much as we can and get to as many people as we can. So that's what we're doing with
Erna
that.
Reinhardt.
This is awesome. It's great to have you guys here, and welcome. I understand you guys have been together for about 10 years, and you have evolved over that period of time. I looked at your website today and noticed that you started singing in retirement homes and doing little school performances and those kinds of things. And now you have a CD. So tell us a little bit about your beginnings, and then I have a couple questions I want to ask you about your first CD.
Okay. The beginnings of recording, or are you talking about
Performing. You started out in theater, then how did you get into the musical part of it?
Okay, we started out, our first performance was at a friend's wedding, and our van broke down the very first performance.
We knew we were musicians when we had our
Yeah, and funny enough, our van broke down on this tour too, so we've been able to relive that. But we started out singing at retirement centers, friends' weddings, anywhere that we could, church functions. And then we would have people that would come up and ask us if we would do other performances here and there. And so it just kind of started out that way, where one thing would lead to another and to another. And then we got our manager we actually met here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho at Arts on the Green. They came and were able to visit that performance. And so that's how we expanded that further. And then our first CD, we recorded, we knew nothing about the recording process. We were very much doing a trial and error kind of a process. We went to Utah, we looked up recording studios in the phone book, and we just picked one for the price, first of all. And then we just went through the process. We learned how to record, and we did that first album in a day. The second album in 2 days. The third album we expanded to a couple of months, and then finally, as we started to go, it started to really become the process that it is. Now we own our own studio and we do our own recordings. And the first 2 albums that we did, we put out of production, so we're not selling those anymore. They're not really our best representation anymore. So.
Well, and I understand, Jordan, that when just before you cut your first CD, not everybody wanted to do a CD. There was some convincing that had to go on, right? True. And there was some financial concerns.
Well, in the beginning, we had a reference. One of our only references was from a guy who was from a group that was just essentially a bar band. They had sold a few CDs. Actually, it was tapes. They didn't even have the CDs, and they had only sold a few. And so his reference was, "You'll be lucky to sell 100 if you do." And so we were kicking around whether we had the money to do it, whether we had the capability of doing it ourselves, and finally just made that goal and that decision to do it and to get a representation of us, if not for posterity, just to get it done. And we had our first hometown concert and sold how many CDs at that first one? Probably.
We sold enough to cover all of our costs and recording costs. And
I think we sold the 100 CDs in the first concert, though.
So
perfect. Perfect.
So we kind of shattered that
expectation.
That information that he had given us. So.
Well, we've had the viewers here for 10 minutes, and they're saying, "Well, how do they sound like?" And I want to first introduce one of your CDs. It's and I intentionally did not in introducing you to talk that much about your group, but it is called, as you said, The Standards. And I try very hard to keep our viewers in contact with people who want to, and so you have a website, and it's www.thestandards.com, and the standards is all together, it's not separated. And this is a picture of it. I don't know if we can get that up on that too much, and then on the back we have this. And we have chosen 2 numbers. We'll do one now and then one later in the program today, and introduce this one. I believe it's called Brown Eyed Girl. And at this time we will have a segment from that so our viewers can appreciate your voice as much as we do. So we will do that now.
Here we go. Days when the rains came.
Well, we are not going to do the whole thing because of other questions I want to ask you, but what great voices. And I should add, in addition to the three of you here, there are two others in the group, and as I said, they'll be on the next program. Before going back to the panel, my question is about your family in the sense that it is very unusual to find an entire group of siblings performing together. You know, different people go different ways in life, and there must be something very special. There must be a certain kind of bond among you because you have something in common. You're traveling together. Could you share with how your family would be somewhat different from families where they're not all working together in this way?
I think it was a decision that we made early on when the group started that as a profession and as our careers, we kind of have to get along. And as brothers, of course, you know, you have your little riffs and everything, but we actually get along really well. And a lot of it has to do with how we were raised with our parents and everything. But on the road, we have such a good time and have so much fun with it. It's hard not to get along.
I guess one other thing that I'm impressed with is that even in families, you know, people's talents are usually quite different. And for all of you to have such wonderful voices, if I was in your family, for example, I could just have to be your manager because I couldn't perform. So that's nothing that impressed me.
We'd let you.
You'd lose your audience if I participated. So, but that is something impressive that all of you have such powerful and wonderful voices.
Thank you, thank you. You know, it's splendid and spectacular that we are able to do this as a family because we enjoy each other's company first and foremost. And you know, when we're not performing and you know when we're not doing things that are in front of the public, we're together still. So, it's a great job to be able to work with your family. I mean, we love it. So.
And you really are being recognized. You now performed in 34 states, I believe, is the latest count. So I hope you don't. If you become more and more famous, you won't forget to come back to Coeur d'Alene at some time.
We live in Idaho, so believe me, we'll be up here again.
Thank you. Janelle Burke.
Yes, for benefit of our viewers who are watching around the state and in our neighboring states, you are somewhat local, being from the Twin Falls area, I believe. My question this time, Jordan, has to do with you don't only sing, but you also talk, and you have messages that you want to get at. And let's start with you, and then, brothers, would you add in and assist him in answering that question? But you do have messages that you want to give to people.
Yes, most definitely. Our shows, if you were to just stand up there and sing, we feel that you don't get a connection with the audience that you would if you were to talk as well and communicate. And that's a vital part of what we do, is that we make sure that we communicate with the audience. Whether we're in a specific area doing a specific theme, sometimes we come into the schools and we'll do a drug and alcohol awareness theme. You know, there's dialogue in between each song. We make sure that we keep it interesting, keep their interests, and you know, let them know who we are on stage.
Morgan, what kinds of things might you do when you're in this group and you're doing your talking part?
Talk the whole time.
I was always known as the talker in the beginning. I think I did all the talking in the
Maybe
very
that's
beginning.
where it started.
And so
We
now I
were
have to rein
stalling.
myself. I think we really try and share that load. We try and reach the audience at a certain level. Like Jordan was saying, we look for entertainment possibilities within the in-between times as well, because that's the time where the audience is really able to get to know you a little bit better instead of just the music speaking for itself. We find that the more that we get on a personal level with the audience, the more that they feel like they're involved, the more there's a kind of a special connection that goes beyond the music and that also enhances the music. So,
And Quinn, you use some extraordinary measures at times too. Games?
Yeah, during our school shows at the grade schools, we'll play games, playing with beach balls, throwing them out in the audience, doing the wave, and different things to help them work together as a team and just have a good time with us. And at our concerts, we'll sing along with them, do things to interact with the audience so that they can lose themselves in the performance and just have a good time and be entertained.
What kinds of things do you do when you go out to nursing homes and those kinds of places?
It's been a while since we've done a nursing home. You know, there's no difference between them and anybody else. They're people. They enjoy the music just like anybody else. So there's
this is for all ages, kids to older.
yeah, the main thing that has changed since that time is the people that are bringing us in. A lot of times it's we have the opportunity to choose what we do now because it's become a profession, it's become a job. So that now we look at the financial opportunity in certain performances, and unfortunately for us on our level, performing at retirement centers is not always the option that we take. So
It's not economically
Yeah.
feasible.
On the right.
Tell us, I'm real curious, who some of your musician role models are for each of you. I know that on your website you have some of your favorite performing artists, but I would love to hear those from each of you, starting with Jordan.
I like some of the older music. I love the Spinners, Temptations, some of the old Rolling Stones stuff, the Beatles, of course, the Beach Boys, a few of their selected. Modern influences. Brian McKnight is a good singer. I'd have to say I also like Outkast, some of the new stuff. I like the idea that hip hop and people who are doing hip hop don't have to just do a rhythm, but they can actually sing and carry music with it as well. So I like the diversity of that. I also like classical music. I like to expand my horizons as far as that goes. I love a lot of Beethoven stuff. Vivaldi's Four Seasons is one of my favorites, and other things like that.
Morgan, how about you?
I think he pretty much covered the bases as far as in our family, we each as brothers have a huge variety of music that that we're influenced by, and I think that comes across in our albums and our music too, is that you'll find that each song is almost different from the next as far as listenability. But as far as who mainly influenced us to start into doing what we're doing, Jordan mentioned earlier in the program that Boyz II Men was an inspiration. They had So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday. We had All for One, who we were able to meet and open for, which was a really interesting thing for us because we had listened to their music, and they started kind of that little bit of a seed for us, and finally got to meet them and perform with them, and so that was a real neat experience. Then probably at the head of all those is the Nylons, and many people haven't heard of the Nylons, but then there are many that have. Yeah, in Canada. Yeah, and they're an incredible group. They're 4 middle-aged men. They've changed a couple of members here and there, but 2 of them have remained the same, and they're just incredible with their harmonies and what they do. So they were a real big influence on us.
Awesome.
As far as music inspiration, there's so many people out there that are incredibly talented, and a lot of what Morgan and Jordan have said, groups that have inspired us. Another one is Stevie Wonder, and a whole bunch of other people that have inspired us. But personally, I just enjoy music in general, whether it be country, classical, hip-hop, rock, anything that people can really indulge themselves in and put everything into it and just entertain people. So
You guys have done some original music, so who in the group is the writer?
all of us, actually.
Awesome.
We all play part in that. Morgan has more of an influence in the very beginning of the group. He was the one that wrote most of the songs, but as the group has evolved, we just collaborate on a lot of things, and personally, we write a lot of songs too.
Awesome.
Well, again, I'm back to my viewers, and I want them to get a taste of another number off of this particular CD that you have, and we're going to play that in just a moment. And I believe this one is Put a Little Love in Your Heart. Mm-hmm. A number of the things you're doing are very familiar to the people, but not hearing it from your voice. So at this time, I'd ask the staff if they would be so kind as to play a portion of that particular number from your CD.
Put a little love in your heart. Sing it with me now. Put a little love in your heart. Oh, yeah, yeah. Put a little love in your heart. 2, 3, 4. Think of your fellow man and lend a helping hand. Put a little love in your heart. You see it's getting late. Oh, please don't hesitate. Put a little love in your heart. I know the world would be a better place. I know the world would be a better place, yeah, for you.
again. I cut it off before it finished, but certainly your CDs are available and people will have them at home to enjoy very much. I've noticed during the program that, Quinn, maybe it's because you're the youngest member, they always go last with you, and they steal your thunder. So Tony's going to do different. He's going to come to Quinn and let Jordan. I knew you'd not get along. We'll let all of you so articulate and let Jordan go last this time. Two things. One is that when I was watching the performance this morning, see, I've really got Quinn happy here now.
Yes.
Another thing you did that was incredible talent as a group, and I don't recall which one was doing it today, but in addition to the instruments you're introducing, even just from your voices, you are using instruments as a group. How did that come about, Quinn?
Well, Nicholas, the one that's not here, one of the two that's not here, I guess he had a lot of free time on his hands, and he learned how to do vocal percussion and horns and different things, and there's a lot of inspiration in the a cappella world with different groups that do instrumentations with their voices. And so I guess just in the beginning you just slowly try things, and it slowly evolves and turns into something that sounds really good, and you throw it into a song. And Nicholas and Morgan, they do vocal percussion in it, and it sounds like drums. Even on that last song, it sounds like there's a drum track in there, but that's complete vocals.
What we're going to do next week, and that's my carrot to my viewers, is we'll have some of that on the show next week. We'll let them do that. I couldn't distinguish between an actual instrument and the voice. I was just so taken by it. My second question, again to you first, Quinn, and then all of them can address this one. That is,
oh, you don't need to talk to them if you don't want to. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. In all walks of life, communication is essential. And I had a dear friend who's now deceased that was a counselor, and she said the number one problem in the world is people don't know how to communicate. Well, music is that avenue for all over the world. People love music and understand it. And human rights, Dr. King showed that so much, that music is so important. So share with us, from my statement, why you think music is almost the common language among people.
Music in a lot of ways touches people in certain ways that we can't say with words. You can always place a moment in time with a song or with music. And a lot of things with what we do with some of our songs is we try to bring across a message to people that I guess normally wouldn't listen to somebody just speaking or somebody else saying it. But through music, they can feel it and they can understand what meaning it has by feeling the music.
And Morgan, again, some of us have traveled in some other countries, and some of us are not as bilingual as we'd like to be. But yet in music, as you hear it, you don't have to understand the language. There's something about it. Would you agree that is so powerful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a child can appreciate music as well as an adult, and there's something about music when it comes from the heart, when it's not something that's fabricated or put together to try and I don't know, maybe go number one on a pop chart or something like that. When something's truly from the heart, there's a translation that takes place from the listener that really vibrates, and they're able to gain, resonates, and they're able to gain from it what the teller of it meant for it to be heard. Does that make sense?
Oh yes, it does. And Jordan, again, that's not what talent I have. I do a lot of speaking around the country, and you get audiences that are very receptive, and you feel a connection with them. They ask wonderful questions. Mm-hmm. My speech is around human rights, but as you perform, give us some idea again how the avenue of music. Are there certain audiences where you just? I've already said it's a common language, but aren't there special audiences?
Let me interpret that question several ways. Yes, there are special audiences for a special, and different people catch different meanings from a song. For instance, when we do high schools, sometimes the songs that we do, what we like to do is enhance older songs. For instance, Put a Little Love. We like to change it a little bit and make it a little bit more modern and give it a little bit more bite to it and make it so that they can can feel it along with us at their age group. So.
Today you did the most interesting thing. We're all packed in there, 1,200 people in the auditorium, and you said in one of your performances, put your arms around the people by where you know them or not, and turn to them and say, I love you. And one person said, man, I love you. And I don't know what world it was. But the point is that you're teaching what life is really about rather than violence and aggression. Janelle Burke.
My question is for any one of the three of you, but who does the arranging That's the first part of the question. Do you write your arrangements or do you do them in some other form? So first of all, who does the arranging?
We all do the arrangement. The greatest thing I think about this unit is that we really try to spread the load. There's no one person that does everything. For the arrangement, we all get together as a group. We all work out the arrangement together. And
every person has their strengths as far as that goes, obviously. But we all like to help so that, like Morgan said, there's not such a load on one person. When we do a song, we don't write it down as sheet music. We do it by ear. And that's just the way that we've learned how to do it.
And then who does the writing when you're going to have inter-audience communication? Who does the writing for that kind of thing? And I know you do the special programs for schools, for example. Who has the ideas and who does the
dialogue
writing for
and
that?
stuff in between the songs?
that's typically me or my other brother Nathan, who's not with us today. We'll usually kind of hack out a basic idea, and it'll have some basic kind of scripting. We don't like to be scripted. We like to kind of go by the feeling that we have from an audience. But we'll have some kind of an idea, and then we'll work as a group with that.
And a lot of that is trial and error. You know, we'll do a concert and we'll have an idea, oh, we'll do this and it'll be funny.
Oh, yes.
And if you go out on stage it's not funny, it won't be in the next show. And then there are some times where it's just, you know, on the fly, you do something that just totally works and you use it for show and show after that.
That was good.
Yeah.
And you do lighting, Jordan,
Yes.
is that right? And choreography?
That's a love of mine, you know, obviously. I like to be on stage first, but, you know, if I could be up in the booth or in the lights, that's the second love. But luckily I can pre-prep the lights and have them all pre-programmed and everything for the show. So.
On that note, I have to bring the program to conclusion. It went so quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
The good news to our viewers is that the Standards will be back with us again next week, and we'll have some of the other brothers on the program to share their thoughts and ideas, as well as to play some more music for you. Again, I want to remind you that on our program today, we've had the Standards from Twin Falls, Idaho. They've toured and been in over 34 states, and we'll hear many great things from them in the future. Thank you for being here today, and we look forward to next week when we will continue to interview the Standards. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll be with us at that time when we continue this wonderful discussion. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
You see it's getting late, oh please don't hesitate, put a little love in your heart. Yeah, the world would be a better place. I know the world would be a better place, yeah, for you and me. Don't you know if you wait you'll see, yeah, another